I think that's just an excuse, period, because guys say the same thing here.
Yeah.
Um, there's you don't need money to settle down. It's just an excuse people use to. I know someone all over Langembus. So this guy was in my ear, and what happened is she got pregnant, and
Oh.
he didn't have anything. So Bavumelana, they went to her house and apologized, of course. We are so sorry. We have a goat, though. Here's your goat, and that was it, man. So, and then I don't know if they're happy, but they're together. And the nice thing about Nietzsche is he's one of the people who warn you about the dangers of ideology, alongside George Orwell.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
from the year 1600, philosophy kind of shifted towards solving the problem of nihilism, or the absence of meaning. Why? Because of the downfall of religion, let's say. People
Hmm.
no longer take religious narratives seriously. And what that does is it leaves a void that can only be filled by another religion or ideology. Ideology being kind of like an incomplete religion, which is not useful for life. It's just something that you believe wholeheartedly. What it does is it gives your life purpose, even though it's a wrong one. And it's very dangerous. It's very dangerous.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dumo Dhlamini. Um, I think the point of this conversation basically was, in retrospect, to check back like on the conversations we used to have. You know, we used to have a lot of maybe young, frail attempts at intellectual discourse. I wouldn't say young, frail, because I feel like they were very deep for their time. And post college and stuff, those conversations like no longer exist because of communities and everything. So the platform aims to bring those conversations in a bigger platform, socio political and economic issues, solution oriented and also idea based, not feelings over logic, but also solution oriented, especially for the young African in Africa and the diaspora. And it was a good place to start the conversation with you. You know how when you're doing public speaking, they say you start from where going to explore uncharted territory. So it was a good place to start with you, people I know, and I know they genuinely enjoy conversations like this, and maybe set the foundation for future conversations to come, and just the general tone of the platform. So yeah, that's the philosophy. So thank you for doing this, even though it has taken us a long time.
Mhm.
Uh, we're great that the stars have aligned eventually.
It's my pleasure, man. Happy to be
Yeah, how
here.
you feeling though?
I feel good. It's a beautiful summer day on a Sunday.
And people should know that Dumolutle is in Zimbabwe right now, and I'm in Connecticut, and I had to
Ah,
wake up
yeah.
for this. So shows the commitment. The times when I had to wake up, and also today is daylight
appreciate
savings.
appreciate you making the time, sir.
Yeah, well, appreciate you making the time. Um, so I think where I can start is we had this conversation when you were saying that you don't necessarily feel the need anymore to migrate to the US, something like that. And
Mm.
for me, I'm someone who's already in the US, and I feel like I'm always thinking that it would be better if people could also get the opportunity to cross over, especially young people with like great minds. So I'm trying to understand, maybe for the purposes of for the viewer, like that philosophy, why the diaspora is no longer as attractive as it were before.
Okay. So in the first place, I think you have to specify US and the
The
diaspora,
US.
because there's a lot of places to go.
Mm-hmm.
They go to Ireland, the UK, Australia. I don't know. I don't know exactly where the feeling is coming from, but it's a feeling. In my mind, when I did the calculations, I was supposed to find my way to the US eventually. But then when it came to actually doing the things required, my heart wasn't there. I don't think the US is very appealing to me, and I'm not sure why, and I don't want to lie on air. So, to be honest with you, I was very happy in Joburg.
Mm-hmm.
So that's always where it's where I want to be. I'm okay going to the UK or Ireland or Europe. Something about the US just doesn't sit right with me subconsciously. And
Mm.
then the other thing was I'm 26 right now, yes?
Yeah.
And if I go to the US, say I do a 2-year master's, by the time I'm done, I'll be 28. I kind of feel like I'm 28 years old, almost 30 with no experience. And for me, that was a bit, what's the word? Scary, let's say.
Yeah.
So I figured I would just continue with what I'm doing, get my actuarial qualification, and then just migrate for work.
Okay. Interesting.
Yes. So wherever that will be, I feel like if I qualify with the UK body, I become a certified actuary or something, then I could go to Europe even
Yeah.
for work rather than doing a 2-year master's. If you
So
ask me in secret, I'll tell you I was worried that I wouldn't get laid in the
nah,
US. That was one of my
the
concerns. I don't want to
the
lie. That was one of my concerns.
the possibilities are endless in this in this in this in this America of ours.
Yeah, because remember I used to stay in Res at NAST,
Yeah.
and we had foreign students there from that African country, and it
Oh
was
yeah, yeah,
difficult
yeah.
for them. It was difficult for them to integrate socially
Well, they
and to get
were
laid.
cut from a different cloth.
Exactly, that's true. Yeah.
I think it's easy. I think America is one of the easiest places for Africans to integrate into because there's already like African Americans here. I think people who
Mm,
go to countries like Germany, Poland, Russia, China struggle more than we do here in America,
mm,
especially even when it comes to like racism and stuff like that. Um, but because here there's already context for a black person to exist
mm,
in, you know. But of course, culturally, there might be a disconnect.
mm.
So I was reading something by I don't know if you know Trevor Ngube, the guy who does some in
Yeah, I
conversation with
know him.
Trevor. Yeah.
I know him.
So he was writing saying what way is it better to live in Zimbabwe or in the diaspora? Some article along those lines, right? So now I'm wondering because for you it sounds like it's more of a practical feeling
Mm,
amongst maybe other things. You know, I'm now wondering maybe there's a philosophy to it for someone who's at home and for someone who's in diaspora like me to say, where is it better to live in? You know, um,
mm,
in the article, it was probably the general idea of the article was wherever your goals are being satisfied. You know, and I was wondering if that is abstract because for some people, well, they have goals but are limited by their country. So is there a philosophy you can adopt uh, that can satisfy whether where you're living is best for you to live? I don't know if you have a sense of where I'm getting at.
okay. You can have a philosophy, right? You can talk all day about what you want, but at the end of the day, everyone wants to be in their home country, I think. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a feeling, for me, it's a feeling that's getting stronger as I get older. Um, but I think if you're young, I think you need to focus on being productive and your career and things like that. And I feel like once you get that down, everything else will fall into place, regardless of where you are. So the only philosophy I've heard, it's not really a philosophy, it's a strategy, more like, um, someone said you need to be in one of the 20 mega cities because that is where wealth creation is happening. And if you want to be successful, you have to participate. There's nothing for you in Bulawayo. There's nothing for you in Polokwane or any
Yeah.
other small city. You need to be in a big city where money is being made. And if you want to take it a step further, you need to be in one of the mega cities. New York, London. That's where you want to be so that you can participate. Yeah.
Well, given that it's not possible because a lot of people, I believe, especially young people graduating university right now, they're asking, or people on my phone, how do I cross over? It's a lot of people. What are the opportunities? How do we get around, right? Do you think there's possibility of satisfaction given that crossing over doesn't happen? Like, you are young right now and you're in Zimbabwe, right? Well, we probably may be on the more, well, say, privileged side because you have fast Wi-Fi right now.
Well, I don't feel privileged, so.
Well, compared to the general, you have a 9 to 5, and that's like,
I do.
To other people, it's a luxury,
I guess.
So it's like,
obviously there's options, period. And as someone who is in the diaspora, I think you are aware the easiest way is to go via school. And I feel like that's kind of open to almost anyone, as long as you're willing to take on student debt. That's a route.
Yeah, like I'm saying though, like, given that all those options don't work for people who are trying to get out, right? And then you're stuck there. Not stuck, but stuck because you're trying to get out. Do you think there's a possibility of satisfaction? Of just like, because you're young and you're...
Being in Zimbabwe, can you be satisfied?
Yeah, given that, you're young, you want to be productive, but you're not being fully utilized. Because I'm trying to get a sense of how people my age right now, people our age, right? We're trying to make it work, but are being, stifled by the status quo. How do they maintain like a mental state, or maybe possibly, not to be sound like toxic positive, but possibly gratitude or satisfaction in its youngest definition?
Oh, life is tough, period. Life is tough, man. I don't want to lie to you. I think if I were to guess, I would say over 60% of the people I graduated with are not working still. And I graduated 2 years ago. And say, of course, I'm just guessing here at the numbers. And of the 40% who are working, a lot of them are doing something that's completely unrelated to what they studied in college. So there's no way you're going to be satisfied in that situation. You just struggle on. But that being said, there are people who are carving out careers and lives as it is. People who are building things, buying second cars. There's people who are making it.
The biggest.
And people getting mortgages. People will have good jobs. Like, it's a minority, but those people exist. You can build a life here in Zimbabwe. And the older I get, the more I feel like it's possible. Maybe I'm a little bit biased because I work for a really big company. And it's, I can see myself living here for the rest of my life. And I may not have all the things that I dreamt about, but it would be a fulfilling life. I'd have responsibility, a family. I'd be able to take my kids to school and, come home to my wife who loves me and who lacks ambition as much as I do. And yeah, we'd be happy. But that's just the minority, like I said. A lot of people, it's just going to be harrowing until the end, forever and ever, unending pain. So there's that.
You know what I'm realizing?
What?
It's like, I think one of the things I was gonna ask you talking about was adulting, right? How we're adulting, because I'm getting a sense of mapping of adulthood of how life is gonna look, because I know the more you grow older, we start making concessions on other things, and then like, okay, no longer wild and trying to do everything, but now specializing and all the stuff. That's the sense I'm getting. Are we there yet?
No, sir. I'm still very much wild. I'm still young and wild and free. But we are under pressure.
We're under pressure.
They are pressurizing us. They want us to grow up instantly and we're not ready.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, our friends are getting married though. I've seen a lot of people our age, like people our classmates I know were getting married and stuff. Do you think we're now in that stage? I don't know for you. Do you think we are now in that stage? I don't know for you, and the practicality of it, etc.
Jeez, what a question. So I keep meeting people who want to settle down. People are thinking about marriage, like the dating pool right now. 26, 27-year-olds. These people want to settle down. And I'm under so much pressure. The only option I have, if I want to continue being a social misfit, is I need to go lower. I need to date people younger than me, 2-3 years younger than me. I'm not ready because I want to build my life first and then I can settle down. But the pressure's definitely there. And I'm thinking about it. And I feel like the longer you spend in the streets, the more you kind of realize that it's kind of maybe not worth the, yeah.
Like here, you grow up, Like here, I feel like there's this sense of, because there's a lot of opportunities, right? Everyone is always on the grind, like, especially for young guys like me. You just want to have your own spot, you want to have your own car. You want to have something going for you, right? I feel like there's this term that is thrown around a lot, or this ideology say, especially for guys, like, I just want to have something going before I settle down, And I feel like that conversation exists here because opportunity exists. So people are less willing to easily settle down or get married because they know they can grind and they get money and then be like, okay, now.
I think that's just an excuse, period, because guys say the same thing here.
Yeah.
You don't need money to settle down. It's just an excuse people use to I know someone all over Langembos. So this guy was in my ear, and what happened is she got pregnant and he didn't have anything. So bavumelana, they went to her house and apologized, of course. We're so sorry. We have a goat though. Here's your goat. And that was it, man. So, and then I don't know if they're happy, but they're together. So,
Well,
it's an excuse we all use.
it's refreshing because I always thought maybe it's context and people back home are more accepting because they know like there's a limitation and this is what I have, and there's more acceptance because they know if you're probably hustling like everybody else, But here there is no. But here it's like, how old are you? You're 25. What are you doing with your life? Because you're probably down with college years. So they expect you to have something going on of some sort. So, but I guess, in the grand scheme of things, it's just like, it's either you don't have the opportunity to settle down and then you're like, I'm hustling. I'm great.
Yeah. When you want to settle down, you will, regardless of how much money you have or how successful you are.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. Well, I think now, like, you're talking about like the philosophy of life and like on like, how people can be satisfied whether at home or abroad or something like that. One thing I was trying to gauge, right, is because we used to have a lot of these like philosophical conversations, and I would wonder whether they're abstract or not. I know you were a big fan of Nietzsche. I don't know if you still are.
Always and forever.
Yeah. So having been here in America, like one thing I've felt is a sense of disconnect, especially in those like American authors and generally me as the average African. When I was reading them from home and now being here, I'm like, I think there's a disconnect because one, it feels abstract, and two, or what if these people don't have the context of the average African? Like if you read The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F by, I don't know if you read that book, right?
Of course.
It's a whole philosophy is condensed, stoicism, like, a lot of philosophies in there. But then I'm thinking, this person maybe is probably not writing for someone who lives in Zimbabwe, where there's military rule and probably live on lesser dollar and they're like trying to be happy with your life like that. Do you think there's that disconnect, or where are we with the stuff that we used to consume?
Okay. Okay. There's a lot in that question.
Yeah.
First of all, I don't like that book, The Subtle Art.
I hate it now too.
And I don't like it because of what you're saying. People, it's not very, I don't think it's very useful for most people. It's too abstract. It's not useful. And I don't think a lot of people have the capacity to read, for example, philosophical material and then translate it to their life, because it's not easy. It's very, very difficult.
Yeah.
It's very, very difficult. However, I think that for those people who can, those books can be extremely helpful. You brought up Nietzsche. For me, what Nietzsche did for me was he helped me to build a philosophy for my life. So it's something that I had capacity for and something that I was able to manage. And also I had no option. My life, I was going through it. So my life needed a new philosophical basis. And I was out of options. And Nietzsche, because he's so deep, it allowed me to go deep into myself and correct beliefs and adopt new ones and ways of doing things and ways of thinking that have directed my life up till now. It has been indispensable. Who I am right now, I owe to Nietzsche. And my wish, if I was a praying man, it would be my prayer that other people would struggle through such books.
Yeah.
And find it in themselves to take them seriously and apply them to their lives, because it makes a very significant difference.
Do you think because I feel like, in Animal Farm, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I think one of the themes there is just like the danger of ideology in general, right? Like how maybe ideas can become very corrosive in a sense. We become drunk on ideas, and then we don't translate to our lives.
Yes, that's true. That's true. And that's one thing I really hate about the United States. Ideology. And that woman, Kamala Harris, my God. Wow. It's unbelievable the things she says sometimes. Anyway, like what I heard this morning, she was at a rally, and apparently she was addressing specifically men, and she was saying, you can't vote for Donald Trump because he's going to oppress women. So please spare thought for our lives, or something like that.
Yeah.
That's how she looks at the world. To me, that's appalling. It's crazy business, And the nice thing about Nietzsche is he's one of the people who warn you about the dangers of ideology, alongside George Orwell. From the year 1600, philosophy kind of shifted towards solving the problem of nihilism, or the absence of meaning. Why? Because of the downfall of religion, let's say. People no longer take religious narratives seriously. And what that does is it leaves a void that can only be filled by another religion or ideology. Ideology being kind of like an incomplete religion, which is not useful for life. It's just something that you believe wholeheartedly. What it does is it gives your life purpose, even though it's a wrong one. And it's very dangerous. It's very dangerous. So ideologies, it's a big issue. And there are books that have ideas that can protect you from ideology. And there are books that are ideological. So I think it's important how you choose the books you read. Yeah. So this is part of what determines the usefulness of the book you're reading.
And how have you managed to traverse that those two, especially because I know you've consumed some of the biggest ideas, especially in philosophy, especially if you're reading Nietzsche. Nietzsche is one of the hardest reads or people to interact with, right?
Yeah.
How do you manage that?
So everything that has an ism here, I take with a pinch of salt. So, for example, it's something topical like anti-racism.
Yeah.
Or Pan-Africanism. Fair and fine. Black people are on the back foot, say, wherever. Or fair and fine, Africa is on the back foot compared to the rest of the world. But I'm not going to take that and elevate it to a fiendish belief where I'm going to carry a poster and not listen to what other people have to say or to opposing arguments. I think that's just about you. I think it's mental hygiene, period. Are you able to look inside yourself and see if you are looking at the world through a rose-colored lens? You have to be aware of your ideology. And this is what Zizek is always saying, is you can't avoid ideology, but at least be aware of the ideology that you have adopted. And that in some way, it helps you to discern. And the thing is, the more you pay attention, the easier it is for you to tell, no, this is ideology, this is based on fact, so you just practice being aware and it will come. That's what I think. Yeah.
So, like, what are your biggest, what's in your, like, toolbox lately?
What am I reading?
Yeah, what are you reading?
Okay.
Or what's been the biggest ism that you're fighting with, like, lately? Because for me, I've been dabbling a lot with the idea of, the world of nations and just dictatorships, and generally ideas that make dictators and all those things. And that's what I've been grappling with. And it's funny, the biggest examples you can find include, among others, Zimbabwe, although not explicitly defined. So it's interesting contents to consume because you have first-hand context.
Zimbabwe will always be interesting, I think. Whether it's politics or economics, Yeah. Yeah.
It'll always be an example. Mm-hmm.
I started off reading philosophical books and then I moved on to psychology books. Right now I'm doing money books because I'm an adult now and I need to be productive. So my favorite read so far this year is this book called The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. It's just about the way you think about money, how you behave around money, and how it can direct your life. Because
I've read the book.
You read the book. It's a good one.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah. So in as much as I like these big ideas, I'm also now just kind of trying to build my life now, being more practical. Yeah, I've definitely become more practical in terms of what I read. Things that I can use today or tomorrow. So on the philosophical side, there's this book I'm reading. It's called The Value of Others. Mm-hmm. It's controversial because the value is about its sexual value. And not sexual value as in, how good you'll be, but as in the value of the people we engage in sexual relationships with, whether it's in marriage or dating or whatever context, what they bring to the table and how we evaluate their worth and how we evaluate our own and how we pick our partners and stuff like that. Very, very interesting and controversial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Well, I've always asked myself, like, because with the ideas of like love, partnerships and stuff, I always feel like even though science has done research, there's a part of me that always thinks that thing is unique to the two people at every point in time. Like, even if there were therapists you go to and then they're like, this is how you build your marriage, I always feel like there's something between those two people that they themselves have to have that can't be prescribed. I don't know.
That's true. That's definitely true. You're always going to have something that's kind of outside the theory because it's your own thing and it's unique. But the theory is there as well. It doesn't hurt to be rich, period.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It will increase your value. I saw something very weird on the internet. Someone did a study of how much money do you need to make to compensate for not being 6 feet tall. That study exists. So, depending on your height, there's a certain amount of money that you would need to be as attractive as someone who is 6 feet and sleeps on their mother's couch, So Yeah. So while there's definitely some uniqueness, we have the same kind of biological substrate, and a lot of patterns emerge out of that, and those patterns can be studied and they can be taken advantage of, which is really the big takeaway. You have a lot of
Wow.
power, more power than you'll ever realize.
Well, money is power, especially in these relationships. The more I think, like we can't escape the idea of not having money
Especially as a man.
as a man. I had a conversation with someone, and then it was saying, "Ah, no, you guys are just like insecure and stuff like that. You're just afraid to approach a girl. This thing of not having money." I'm like, it could be true, right? But from where I'm standing, I'd rather have money than it not be true.
I mean, there's getting her. So this is the other thing that I thought about when you said there's something that these two people share. There's getting her and there's keeping her, or there's getting him and keeping him. So while you may develop some kind of personal bond after you're familiar, sometimes you don't even get the light of day, P.O. I'm sure you're aware. You don't even get that close. So, which is where you need game, right? This is where game comes in.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm curious though, right? Because I've read the book too, like The Psychology of Money. And I've read like a couple of finance books, they'll be telling you savings account, maybe the 80-20, whatever principles and all those things, right? I'm like, I think it goes back to the things like sometimes I always feel like there's a disconnect because to the average person living in Zimbabwe, right? How practical are those like is that advice when it's being given? Because yeah, some of it feels like, because right now, even like me, for example, right now I'm reading some books and then it says you should maybe have a savings fund, or maybe you're listening to is it Gordon Ramsay? Those guys, the financial gurus and stuff. And then they're like, contribute every time to your investment account, save at least 1,000 for a rainy day, start paying down your debt. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not ready to think about saving because paycheck is gone every time, right? Or something like that. Maybe that's how it is. And then they like, maybe save $20 and you're like, but the $20 is gone, So then now you're looking at from a context of even Zimbabwe, someone doesn't even have a steady salary to some extent.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's not fair when people feed us those strategies and philosophies without considering our context. I'll give you an example. There was a time I had a fight with one of my older cousins. I was in second year college, and she was like, "Oh, we're going to Dubai next year. You need to save up." I was so offended. I was so upset. I took it personally. I wanted to slap her. At the time, I was living on like $100 a month. Yeah. That's roughly $3 and a few cents per day. Yeah. If you do the math, if you need 3 meals a day, POA, right? Yes, it's dollar is the maximum for a meal. Like that's your maximum. You can't go above $1. And so I didn't have a living income, let's say. So the number one condition for strategies like, save or have a savings account or service high interest debt, these things are for people who have a little bit more than they need. You need to earn a living wage. That's the first requirement. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. Even if you draw 4 boxes and one that says liabilities and assets and one that says income and whatever, and you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad 10 times, it won't make a difference because you don't have a living wage. You're not earning a living wage. And so you need to get to a point where you are making a living wage first. And if you're in Zimbabwe, it's very difficult to earn a living wage. So if you're not, you need to move out and go somewhere where you earn a living wage, where these things begin to make sense, because they do make sense. And the older I get, the more advanced I get in my career, the more these things are making sense. Right now, they're not exactly making sense. They're not making perfect sense, but I'm seeing the patterns starting to emerge. I can control my spending pattern. I can save a little bit, and so on and so forth. Yeah. So yeah, definitely. So insensitive.
I read this book, Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell.
I love that book.
It's one
you
of my
can put it in my
favorites.
coffin, that book.
It's one of my all-time favorites. And one of my biggest takeaway, I think, was like something that most financial gurus or like just people in this it's just people in this financial sects always saying is like they don't give context to say like it matters where you are and what time maybe you were born or stuff like that towards the whole idea of success, especially financially or otherwise, right? Because most people leave out that context. And then they'll be like, work hard, and you're going to be successful, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, prescribing that to somebody in a Zimbabwean context, you know? Like the whole, it's very unfair.
It's an insult.
And I was writing about this idea of financial freedom. Like it's a common thing in America. Like I know a lot of people talk about it. Like you want to be out of a 9-to-5 and then, you know, doing whatever you want to do with your own time. And when I came here, for me, a 9-to-5 for a while felt like enough, you know? And I'm thinking, like, what is the concept of financial freedom and like in Zimbabwe? Like, is the conversation different in different societies?
Okay. So Pio, the conversation is the same. It's just a lot harder in Zimbabwe. It's a lot harder, but the conversation is the same. Levels. So the easiest way is if you start a business. Well, look at me saying starting a business is easy. So everyone my age, because of the frustration with the job market and whatnot, they're thinking about a business, and they glorify the thing, and they make it, it's like a religious fervor now, like going to start a business and my life is going to change.
Yeah.
Except starting a business is really difficult, especially in an economy like ours. It's really hard to make it profitable and have it change your life in that way. But that's what people want to do. That's what people are planning to do. People are very business minded, but the businesses they start, it's not the kind of business that will make you financially free. It's the kind of business that will have you getting by, barely, by the skin on your teeth. Another route is big corporate, high-paying jobs. I don't know what kind of country people think Zimbabwe is. You can get a high-paying corporate job in Zimbabwe and live like a king. I've seen people doing it. It's being done. Like, for example, my GCEO, he drives a GLE and then Isuzu, a truck. And apparently he decided, no, he needs a proper truck to go to his farm. And so they bought him a Raptor, a Ford Ranger, a brand new one, the top spec. And it's for going to the farm. That's why it was bought.
Not for dailies.
It's not for daily use. It's not to impress anyone. It's for going to the farm. So there's a lot of people like that in Zimbabwe. People who have successful businesses or people who have high-paying jobs, and everyone aspires to that. Conversation is the same. It's got nothing to do with culture. It's about the money, and everyone's thinking about it and trying to find a way.
So it's like other people are gonna get there quicker than other people, depending on where you are and where you work.
In Zimbabwe, most people will never get there, but some will.
Do you think we should accept that? Like I was saying in the beginning, like the more we grow older, we start making concessions. Do you think you have to sit down with yourself and like, from where I'm standing, right? This thing is causing me a lot. You know how they say the existence of desire is unhappiness in the sense. Yeah. Because you're always chasing after something. Do you think it's like sit down and be like, okay, and from where I'm at, this is how it's looking? And trying to always say financial freedom, blah, 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 is...
You know, Piwe, I think it's unfair what we do to people. Like what you were saying, like there's this pressure that you must have something going on. I feel like that's a bit unfair. Not everyone is ambitious. Not everyone is, and that's okay. Like it's completely fine. Like some people, they're perfectly happy working an administrative job that's just going to pay the bills. And if that's what you want, if you're not willing to put in more work or do something more difficult or take more risk to get more, if you genuinely don't want that, then you should be free to do so. So yeah, that's what I believe. And you don't have to work 60, 70 hours a week to make insane amount of money if that's not going to fulfill you. A lot of people, if you ask a lot of people, where does the meaning of their life come from? They'll tell you it's their children, or they'll say it's their family or their spouse. And this whole idea of you need to make as much money as you can, you need to be financially free, whatnot. It might be nonsense for some people. So, yeah, some people are happy being normal. And sometimes I think I wouldn't mind being normal. I work in a big company, like I said, and sometimes I look at the people in the big chairs and I feel sorry for them because the amount of stress, like where I'm working right now, pure, our balance sheet is, depending on where the rate is, between 6 and 800 million US dollars.
Yeah.
And there is someone who doesn't sleep at night because they're not sure if the money is okay, if the money is safe. Do you know the amount of stress? Period. You know? And then in the media, they're saying your company steals money from pensioners. You know? You can't even show up at public events because you're embarrassed with your job because everyone thinks you're a thief. So there's a lot of stress. So sometimes I think I would be happy just having a normal job.
Yeah.
And it's part of the reason why I would want to move to somewhere like South Africa. If I stay here, okay, this is a bit grandiose. But if I stay at the company I'm at, POA, I feel like I'll end up with too much responsibility and too much stress. But I feel like if I go to somewhere competitive like New York or London, I will just be a normal person. I will work my 9 to 5, get instructions from my boss in the morning, do what needs to be done, say thank you sir, and go home to my wife who loves me and my son who made the team this year and I'm proud of him. you know. So, yeah,
That
being
is one
ambitious,
way to
it's not
look
all
at
that. Yeah. So, yeah, that's what I think. It's not all that.
Wow. You know who you reminded me of? You remember
Who?
Dudu's Maposa?
Yeah.
Right, for the Maposa is right. He was a friend of ours in high school, right? So he used to say, people like would be like talking, and then everyone is like, I want to have my own company, businesses and stuff. And then Dudu would be like, me, I want a steady salary every month, and I want rights.
Exactly. Yes, I want to close my laptop on Friday night and go to crew.
Gotta agree.
Yes.
Wow. Oh, that's one way to look at it, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like you mentioned something about with other people, when you ask them where their happiness or satisfaction comes from, and then like family and their kids, I always think about my grandfather and grandmother, right? I'm like, I don't think they're ever ruminating about whether they're happy or not, the same way we are doing now. I think it's always been like, the grandkids are here, the kids are here. I take care of them. They're now taking care of me, and that's about it. This thing of I want to travel the world, and it's like, yeah, nah. As long as Christmas, I got them like a little clothes to wear. And I'm now thinking, and I'm now thinking, do you think it's like, no, I know it's now a long-winded question. I had a conversation with somebody who you know, by the way.
Okay.
And then, and then they were saying that it is it's kind of selfish to want to say I'm happy because of my kids, or like you want to have kids so that they become your happiness or your source of meaning or something like that. But like contrast that with how we were raised up, or our parents or grandparents. Would you agree with that sentiment? Like,
Peewee. I watched this movie a few years ago. I think it's called Capernaum. I think it won an Oscar. Okay, so this kid was born into poverty in Lebanon, and he wanted to sue his parents for giving birth to him. And you know what? All his arguments are valid, right? And this person you are talking to, her viewpoint is valid. The only problem is that philosophically it's incorrect in philosophical terms, because it's anti-human. It's a rebuttal of your own existence. There's this thing that we're now doing in 2024 where we want to make people feel bad for having children. I feel like that's wrong, and it's very dangerous, and it's unfair, because not only is having children a right, but as long as you believe that life is good, or like existence is a good thing, or the opportunity to live is a good thing, you should have no qualms about having children. And I feel like that's the philosophy we should be pushing. We should not discourage people from having children. And if you want to add another layer of whether or not it's good to have children, one of the biggest challenges that we have right now is the potential for a population collapse, because people are having less children. It's a serious problem. Like, you have countries like China abandoning one-child policies in favor of 2 or 3-child policies, right? You have countries like South Korea giving incentives for people to have children. You can't argue that having children is a bad thing. That's wrong. It's anti-human. That's how I feel. I feel like it's an incorrect philosophy, because it somehow implies that existence is a bad thing. Regardless the reasons why people have children, you cannot say that having children is a bad thing, because that's like saying being a human being is wrong. And I feel like that's a very dangerous way of looking at the world.
Yeah.
So that's my take.
Wow.
Yeah.
we see how Nietzsche is influencing you. No, that is profound. Like, I've never looked at it like that. Well, I've always been against it because for me, some of these things, I just bring them from just like a conversation level and to like, just look at other people who are living life. And I'm like, for my mom, I was her pride and joy beyond whatever was going through her life.
Exactly.
You know?
And
I'm
I was happy to be there for my mother. I wanted to make my mother proud. And if she was proud of me, I was happy.
You see?
And she gave my life meaning as a young boy.
You know?
Yes.
So yeah, I think that's how I always look at it. And it makes sense. It makes sense when I looked at it like that. The last thing maybe, like, mapping political conversation. Like, what is the nature of like political discourse in like right now amongst your peers, or generally how you have a sense of it right now, especially with current events and just like the status quo in Zimbabwe.
Right.
What do you think about it?
I don't know if you watched The Joker, the first one.
Oh yeah, they say the second one is bad.
Yeah, I saw the ratings and I didn't bother to go to the movie house. So I don't go below 8.5.
Yeah.
Anyway, I feel like the conversation on politics will always be the same. People will always have this view that things right now are worse than ever. Number one. Number two, that the establishment is to blame. It's a human archetype. That's how we look at the world.
Yeah.
We will always be, in whatever context, we will always be the creature that's locked out of heaven, or that got kicked out of heaven for eating the forbidden fruit. That's just how we look at the world. So young people here in Zimbabwe feel exactly the same as the young people in America. They feel like things are really bad now. We are unsafe. There's no jobs. There's no money. There's nothing we can do. And the government is to blame. That's how everyone feels. In Zimbabwe, because we've had, things are genuinely bad and our government is genuinely to blame, maybe our feelings are justified. But I feel like we will always feel this way. Another thing we have on top of that is we've kind of given up.
Yeah.
We've kind of given up. We've lost hope. We've kind of accepted that this is the status quo. This is how things happen here. And that's life. And I feel like that's another human tendency. There's some things you can't control, man. And if it's not getting worse, then why think about it?
It is what it is.
It is what it is. And which is why I feel like Zimbabweans are very desensitized to their suffering. Like, you only snap out of it if you go to a foreign country. Every time I visit Joburg, I feel like, my God, I am suffering. You know? It's a feeling. Because I'm so used to, okay, I don't have Zesa from 5:45 in the morning. And I'll get it back 10 p.m. That's normal for me. And I'm not throwing a tantrum over it because it's going to happen every day anyway. That's my routine. It's only when I go stay in Rosebank for a week and I realize like, no, I can have Zesa 24/7. That's when I come back and I feel like, wow, things are bad. But over time, you get used to the suffering. You get used to it and you forget, you know? And the feeling is so real, period. When you land, I don't know if you've landed at Harare International before. if you compare to other runways in other countries, you can see that, okay, this tarmac is uneven, like, and if you look around, it's all grass, like yellow grass, like you get the feeling that, yeah, things are bad here, you know, before you land, and yeah. And that's just life, but you kind of accept the politics. What are you going to do, man? Now that I drive, I see the motorcade more often. And one thing I really, really, really hate is you have to park on the side of the road and let them pass. Otherwise they'll, you know, break your windows or something, you know. Or you'll get slapped, which is worse. And yeah, you accept over time that no, me, I don't have power and I can't do anything. And you accept, and life goes on, and you can be happy. To go back to your first question, you can be happy. You really can. But you shouldn't be. You shouldn't be, but you can be.
You know, the reason why I also ask you this is because I've talked to people here in America, like young people, right? Especially here. And I'm like, from the few people I've talked to, it's like the general idea of trying, you know, small capacities to like, it maybe engage in discourse that maybe tries to reimagine Zimbabwe in a better way, or just the whole idea of like talking about the politics is not there. It's like once they're here, they're like, I've crossed over. Wow, thank God, or the universe, and I have nothing else to do with the politics of Zimbabwe. Just fend for my family, and that's it.
So right now, our sitting president is coming to the end of his second term. It means, according to the constitution, will get changed by default. Which means right now people are supposed to be excited to say, finally, some change. This is our opportunity to change things or get a new president. This is our chance to get opposition into power because they have succession issues. Guess what?
Yeah.
None of that. It's not happening. You know why? Because people have realized that no, we don't have power. We can't decide these things.
Yeah.
So no one cares. No one is thinking about it even. People wouldn't be surprised if this guy changed the constitution just to do a third term. That's the level of acceptance. It's acceptance.
I was thinking about that too. I'm like, if he doesn't change the constitution, right? Of course, it's just recycling of the same people and the same cabal, you know. But if it doesn't change the constitution, I think it's a glimmer of hope, though, in the so-called democracy of Zimbabwe. If it doesn't change the constitution, because once it creates a culture of recycling, it's not a bad thing. One idea that was
an inspiration right now. They finally did it.
I was thinking now. This book I was reading, it's called The Dictator's Handbook, right? It talks about this. The presidency of Zimbabwe only needs a few people for it to exist. Like, it doesn't need to do a lot of service delivery. It doesn't care about everyone. It only cares about the army commander, the military, the police commissioner, and the chief justices, and, you know, the people around him that he pays constantly. If those people are paid, he retains power. That's basically Dictator 101, right? And in Botswana, I feel like it's a little bit different, as much as it is in South Africa, although like under the radar, there's just like a few people controlling everything. It's like you have to do some form of try and impress everyone else, a lot of people, for you to retain power. So there's more incentive to try for service delivery and stuff like that, you know. But with us, it's like, as long as so and so is paid up. But we'll see.
People really had hope on the previous election, and it was dashed unceremoniously. Shona people were saying Nietzsche usiku, which means in English like by the night.
Yeah.
Things were happening. And so, Pira, if you take these things personally, you'll be miserable. That's why people don't care.
Yeah.
Because they've kind of accepted that they can't do anything about these things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I hear what you're saying, that you need to pay a limited number of people. But I have a hot take on that. Maybe it's unrelated to your question.
Mm-hmm.
I really feel like the current presidency is trying.
You think so?
I feel like they're trying. The problem is, they don't realize that they can, no matter how hard they try, it won't make a difference because of who they are.
Wait, where are they trying it? Maybe exactly. Because the other thing is, sometimes service delivery can be provided so that employment is created and then taxes paid, and then they make money to pay off their handlers in the same way. So sometimes you provide services so that you get money yourself.
Yeah. Well, I feel like the current president is already rich beyond measure. I don't think he needs more money. The problem with him is that he's a bit handicapped because, okay, speaking freely, there are people who need to get paid. And even if he doesn't want to pay them, he may have to.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. So it's because of who he is and the culture that the cultural backdrop where he's coming from or who he was.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to get out of that mold. Even though they have, a lot of economic interventions that they're doing, they won't work. Because first of all, the outside world will never accept them. And that's requirement number one. Zimbabwe has to be accepted by other countries. Period. I feel like I've studied a lot of economics. The most important thing for an economy is to make it easy to do business in the country. So I think they don't realize that as long as he is the one sitting in the big chair, or as long as they are the ones sitting in the big chairs, no one will feel like it's easy to do business in Zimbabwe, which is why we need change. And this is the argument I levy to people who vote for the liberation parties, because running the country is hard and the opposition doesn't have expertise. And I'm like, no, opposition doesn't need to have expertise. Opposition just needs to be opposition and to be in power so that people feel like they can do business. Yeah, feel like there is change. Because our problems are, the main problem is, it's not easy to do business in the country. One, we don't have respect for property. Two, people feel like the government will take advantage and squeeze businesses and charge high taxes and, embargoes and whatever, grease the wheels. These things. You used to live here. And so, what can the common person do? Nothing. We just wait.
Wow. Okay.
We just wait. And
this is interesting perspective. I've never thought about that. Maybe to sum it all up, right? To sum it all up, I think, like, my fear is always having conversations that don't translate to actual practicality. Of course, sometimes it's fun to, engage in these abstract ideas, but I think most of our conversation did have some translation to actual life. What do you think is the value of these conversations, particularly even about the politics, even though people don't have any more hope. Do you think there's a need for us to keep having these conversations? Do you think they still have a place in our lives or in society in general? Or just consume what is immediate to you and keep it moving?
Yeah. So where I am right now, there's a security guard at every entrance. These people don't do anything. They fall asleep. They watch Netflix or the equivalent, and someone might say, okay, we don't need them, but that would be false, because what is needed is their presence, and it's a deterrent knowing that these people are there. And if something does happen, they will see it. So we need them, even though most of the time they're not doing anything. I think it's just the same with political conversations. If you're part of the electorate, it's your responsibility to at least be aware of what is happening and to participate in terms of voting. Then you can vote from an informed place. So you have to be aware. One thing about me is I don't really talk about politics much. I don't get in my feelings over it. I mean, my life is going on, but I'm aware. And I feel like that's the bare minimum.
All right. Any last thoughts?
Any last thoughts?
Any parting words? Any words of wisdom to impart to our beautiful viewers? Will allow you to lend.
Jeez. Take care of yourself.
Or general feelings
Take care of
our conversation.
That's my advice. Take care of yourself. Yeah. Look after yourself. Do the basic things. Look after the money. Look after your body. Look after your family. Just take care.
Yeah.
That's my message. In as much as we enjoy these conversations and they're helpful and they're good for you.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you have to wake up in the morning and brush your teeth and go to work and do the things that need to be done for you to put food on the table. So take care of yourself.
Incredible.
Yeah, that's my 2 cents.
All right. Right, this has been fun, man. Yeah, I knew this was going to be an interesting conversation.
Yeah, but we didn't get into my favorite topic.
What's the favorite topic?
Religion as such.
Oh yeah, I did write it. My last question, right? Number 6 was religion in retrospect. We can actually talk about it. Like I was like characterization of John Tarlac, and then the nature of religion here versus and where we are now. I mean, we can talk about it in 1 or 2.
Yeah, but why did you skip it?
Huh?
Why did you skip it?
Well, the conversation was already good, so I was like, this maybe could a conversation for another day in detail.
Okay, maybe we can do another one.
But maybe fatla. Okay, no, that's fine.
It's up to you. It's your podcast.
That's fine. No, you definitely be coming back because, if you do wish to come back and you have time.
Of course, man.
I want to, how, I don't know if you listen to Java. Java has this thing where he's like, he doesn't necessarily need to collaborate with big artists, international artists, for his music to be considered international.
Yeah.
So you'll get like a random producer on YouTube who has like 100,000 views, 100,000 likes, and then they make music and he says that's international, as long as it's quality music. So that's my philosophy for this conversation. I'm not looking for big names. I'm looking for people I would enjoy having conversations with and quality, valuable conversations. So when you do have time, we'll get on another one.
Definitely. Why not? Yeah.
All right, man. Thank you for doing this. Till the next one.